AI in Action is brought to you by Alldus International, covering your business's staffing, consulting, and networking needs. Our host brings you the leading minds in AI, sharing their story, their success, and their advice. Focusing on fast-tracking you to the top, AI in Action cuts through the hype to help you kickstart your data science career. To listen to the latest AI in Action podcast, head over to www.alldus.com/podcast or subscribe via iTunes, Stitcher, or Google Podcasts.
You're listening to AI in Action. I'm your host, JP Valentine. Our guest today is Emily Bailey. Emily is the Director of Data Products and Machine Learning at Rent the Runway. Emily, welcome to the show.
Hello, thanks so much for having me.
It's our pleasure. So, Emily, let's start with yourself. Can you give a brief overview of your background in technology, where you got started, some of the roles you've held along the way, and sort of walk us through your journey, taking us up to your most recent position at Rent the Runway?
Absolutely. So I would say it really started in my senior year in college. So I studied economics and environmental science and was always interested in being able to quantify things and understand the impact of things. And I wanted to make the world better. But it wasn't until my senior year when I was introduced to econometrics, and I actually worked on a thesis with a data set that hadn't been touched before. And so I had this raw data in front of me and a bunch of questions that I got to ask and explore the data to answer. And working really closely with my advisor, Professor Chris Timmons, who I'm still in good touch with, to understand like what could I learn here and what the impact of getting those questions answered might be. And I had a lot of fun working on that and realizing that economics doesn't just have to mean policy, and it doesn't just have to mean banking, which was really common at my undergrad. And so I had a consulting gig lined up that was really common coming out of school for me. The term data science hadn't really been made popular yet. I didn't know that existed. But consulting turned out to be, it's very much making recommendations. And I was much more interested in being able to build things and see the impact that I had hands-on. So simultaneously worked on a startup with some people that I met the city I was living in. And when that was short term, you fail fast, you learn a lot, and ended up moving to a company called O-Power, which was a pre-IPO. I think at the time it was a Series C, and it was a clean tech company. So it really combined the things I loved. I was building forecasting models. I was learning how early stage companies work, getting to bother engineers all day with my questions about my early coding skills. Got to go through an IPO there, which was a really incredible experience. And then after a little bit longer at that company, I ended up at Uber. And so when I joined Uber, it was 2015, and it was growing at an insane pace. And I had just an incredible 5.5 years, really absolute joy of working on many different teams, building different products, hiring people, and strategizing about what we could do and what we could build. And then after 5.5 years, I'd gotten to go through a second IPO. I saw that we'd created this massive impact on the world. Felt really happy about it. And it was getting time to try some new problems. I worked on so many different things there, and I was wondering whether I could work on them all at one time instead of continuing to switch teams. And I've been an avid customer of Rent the Runway for many years. And so when I saw they were looking for a head of machine learning, I thought that sounds like there's a bunch of challenging problems. There's a wonderful product. It's a company that I had followed for a long time. And so to give a little bit of background, Rent the Runway was founded about 10 years ago by two women who had this thought that you shouldn't have to own all the clothing you're going to wear, because so many times you don't need to wear it more than once or more than a handful of times. And so it started as one-time rentals for events, and then it became a subscription platform. So you pay a certain amount per month, and you have access to this closet in the cloud. And so when I started using that service, it was life-changing. I mean, I stopped buying nearly as much clothing. Just the number of different trends and things I could test out was skyrocketing. And when I thought about the problems that must exist on the tech side, I was absolutely fascinated by what this role could mean. So today, my job is leading our machine learning engineering team, and we work across the entire business, building data products and leveraging different machine learning concepts that draw from all sorts of fields. So using operations research techniques to improve our warehouses, to improve our transportation efficiency. We're using more traditional machine learning approaches in search and discovery and relevance. We're using NLP to improve our customer support. We're using computer vision to do things like make us smarter at what we buy. The list really goes on, and it's been a really fun only 6 months so far. So I'm excited about what comes next.
Amazing, amazing. Thank you for the overview. Incredible journey so far. Getting the experience of IPOs, working at a monster like Uber, and being through that journey from hyper growth to now Rent the Runway. You've already given some insight on your role, and you've given a great description of Rent the Runway as a business for anyone who's not familiar. I want to focus now on some of the unique challenges that you, your team, and the company have faced with the disruption of the pandemic. Can you help give us some insight into what it's been like since joining? You joined in obviously the height of the challenges, and how you guys have adapted, and then we can look at some of the things that are in store post pandemic.
Yeah, this pandemic has really impacted different businesses in different ways. And, we all know that some sectors of retail are absolutely booming, but sharing clothes with people you don't know was not the first instinct of most people when there was this highly communicable novel disease out there. And so it was a tough time, especially early in the spring, in the early summer. And that was around the time I was interviewing. And it was part of what was exciting to me because I saw this incredible brand, this incredible leadership team. And I saw the existing problems, and then on top of it, this new challenge. And I said, this is going to be a really exciting time to rebuild. And the team members I work with today have that same feeling that, it's actually given us an opportunity to rethink some of the hardest problems that we already had, and be really, really serious about prioritizing how we tackle them and what really matters for our customers. And at the same time, we've opened up new avenues of revenue. So things like we've always allowed members who have a rental at home that they really love. Sometimes you don't want to give it back. And so we have this this method of keeping it called Keep It Forever, where we let you buy it at a discount from how you would otherwise buy it through a retailer. And we've made it possible now for women to buy things even if they don't have them at home yet. So that's been a really great revenue driver for us. But this time has changed, and we want to give more flexibility to people who are using our platform. And so we've been able to do that in a lot of different ways. And then another thing that we've done is, while our user numbers have been down, it's given us more flexibility in terms of really tackling things like large-scale technical projects that may not be immediately visible to users, but things that make things smoother on the back end. So we're onboarding new tools to make us faster at building. We're rewriting large code bases, and that helps us move faster in the future, so that when we get to the middle of 2021 and the recovery, we know that the world is just going to keep changing. And if we didn't have this flexible tech platform to build on, we wouldn't be able to keep up. And so it's really hard today to predict what is going to be needed. And we're making some bets. We're launching some new features that we think people will love. But we're also just making it possible for us to scale faster and to iterate faster when our customers come back and start telling us what it is that they want. So we've had a lot of fun over the last couple months making these preparations, and we're starting to see the signals already that people are, they're excited for this year. And yeah, we're as excited as anyone else.
Aren't we all? It's such a great perspective on leaning into what was an incredibly challenging time, and viewing it as an opportunity to rebuild and regroup and innovate, and viewing the positives rather than focusing purely on the challenging aspects of the pandemic. So I think that's great to hear, and it's inspirational for people. So I want to now focus on your growth for your team, because obviously prior to the pandemic, Rent the Runway were having huge success, growing in various locations. That, although slowed down temporarily, didn't stop, and is now back continuing again. So can you give us some insight into your strategy and your style of team building and leadership that you've developed from startups to Uber, that you're now going to apply at Rent the Runway? What's important to you?
Yeah, I think it's really been different based on where I've worked. So Uber was a company that had hundreds of data scientists and analysts and machine learning engineers. And so we were able to hire for very specialized knowledge. And I really had the privilege of working with truly global experts in their field. And that was incredible to be able to build a marketplace and hire people who have studied the intricacies of marketplace experimentation and marketplace optimization. Here at Rent the Runway, we're a much smaller team. And so I'm hiring people who are much more flexible. So instead of hiring somebody who might have spent 10, 15 years completely dedicated to one sub problem, I'm finding people who are excited to work on a variety of different problems and who've done it in industry before. So that's one major difference. I think a second difference is at a company like Uber, you have really incredible support in terms of the tooling around you. But that goes both ways. It means that a lot of technical challenges are abstracted away. And it's nice. It means you can move fast on a given problem. But it also means you may not have as much visibility into the underpinnings of how things work. You may not be forced to learn the full stack of what it takes to build an AI product. And at Rent the Runway, we have a really incredible data engineering partner team. We have data science teams who are helping us drive hypotheses and build models. But we're really the glue across all of it. So I hire for people who are comfortable pulling data, building models, but also putting models in production, maintaining production services, who can not just talk to the business and scope a problem and understand what the impact will be, but also work with engineers and product managers to size how long it will take to implement and understand how our microservices will work with other services that engineering teams own. And that's been a lot of fun, and it's a really challenging profile to hire for.
So Emily, you've already touched on how Rent the Runway pivoted, looked to innovate despite the challenges of the pandemic, and we're already seeing the signs of coming out of this. There's growth expected. You're going to need to build a team. Can you give us some insight into some of the projects that you're most excited about tackling in the coming months and year?
There are a couple major spaces that really come to mind. So like I mentioned, there's so many problems here where we could lean in. But when we look at where we really have the competitive advantage in terms of what data is internal to us and what nobody else could figure out, there's a few things that stand out. And so one of those is relevance. And I'll do a little thought exercise first. Think about the size of your closet today. You might own a few hundred pieces of clothing, probably less. And think about how long it can still take to get dressed some days. And now imagine that you have more unique styles at your disposal. So the problem of I have nothing to wear is suddenly complete choice paralysis. And we don't want that. And more, I think we see e-commerce is leaning into this same visual feel, and people have this horrible feeling when they're doing the endless scroll. But we have a decade of data to help us learn from our community. We have a really active membership group who are giving us amazing reviews. They're telling us what fits. They're telling us what made them feel good. So we can not just show you what you're going to be drawn to, but we can help you find out what's going to fit well, what is best suited in this season, right? We know what time of year it is. We know what works in hot weather. So that's something that we're working on in terms of really many different products come out of that. We're building custom carousels to help you find pieces that are exciting, that fit. We're improving search functionality to make it possible to find, that perfect leather jacket or faded sweatshirt. I want people to be able to search for a certain aesthetic instead of a specific term. And we're learning how to stretch someone's comfort zone, how to show them something new that's exciting, make them feel like this closet really is endless without going too far out of the box where they say, that's irrelevant, you're wasting my time. And I think the space is particularly interesting right now because we've seen a lot of blowback from really poorly used algorithms or algorithms that were optimized in the wrong way that have lost people's trust. And I think that's shown up in many ways over the past few years and is finally getting the attention it deserves. So we're really thinking about ensuring that these are algorithms that make our customers' lives easier without obscuring anything that they should know or violating any of their trust. So that space is really a fascinating one. And then another space that is really critical for us that I don't think anybody else can do the way we can is maximizing the sustainability of a given style, a given piece of clothing. If you think about, traditional dry cleaners are very single service oriented. Maybe they have a long-term relationship with their customer. But it's not on the same level as us, where we're seeing a style dry cleaned over and over and over and going out to many different customers. And we want all of them to stay happy with the quality of the clothing they're receiving. And on the flip side, it's not just about people being happy with the quality, but it's also keeping those pieces alive for as long as possible, because we don't want to have to buy more inventory than we need. We don't want to have to retire or get rid of inventory before it really should be. And we know that people really care about sustainability. We really care about sustainability. And so the longer we can extend its useful life by optimizing things like how we wash it, how we spot treat to make sure it doesn't have to go through multiple cleaning cycles. Those are amazing things that we're looking into. And so one component of this that I think is really exciting is using computer vision to detect stains, for instance, and understand what type of stain or other type of defect in the piece of clothing is that. And then how do you route it through the cleaning process and the repair process efficiently to take advantage of that. And so these are hard problems. We're really just starting work on them, but they have such a huge reward in terms of getting the most out of everything we buy. And then really those two problems come together farther up the chain. So we're using them to the knowledge of what's relevant to people and what clothing is durable to help us understand what we should buy and what we should hold in inventory. So what will our customers be excited to rent? What's going to last? And then we also do resale. So like I mentioned, people being able to keep something forever. We want to know what price we should set so that we're not getting rid of things that people love. We want to make sure that things stay on site, stay available for the rental experience if it's something that many, many women would like to keep renting. And even farther up the chain, how do we make sure we are buying the right inventory? How can we even work with designers to help them create inventory that lasts? How can they make sure that the clothing they're designing is made from materials that can handle more than one wash, that is going to fit people so that people will not just love what it looks like on the mannequin, but that will feel good on their bodies, that they'll keep coming back to. And so continuing to share data with our design partners is something really exciting in the space as well. There are designers that we've worked with for a decade now, and it's really something that I'm excited to be able to do.
Amazing. I think you've given us such great insight into what it's like to work at Rent the Runway. There's so many unique challenges, and for anyone who's passionate about working with data, that's what you want. You want interesting problems, interesting challenges that are going to test your skill set and ultimately have an impact to the overall business, which clearly you've just outlined so many examples. Emily, we appreciate you coming on today, talking to us about your experience, your journey, the reasons why you made the moves when you did, and the incredible work that's happening at Rent the Runway, and all the data science stuff behind the scenes making it happen. So thank you again for your time.
Thanks so much for having me.
AI in Action is brought to you by Alldus International, covering your business's staffing, consulting, and networking needs. Alldus offer an exec search program. Alldus can help you discover how data science and AI can transform your company. With our unrivaled network of C-suite executives and senior AI professionals, we offer retained search services across the US and Europe. Get the Alldus advantage. Become a member of the Alldus community and enjoy some of the following: AI meetups. Once a month, our community gathers to listen to some of the leading experts in the world of data science and AI. Our speakers come from all over the world, including Dublin, Boston, and Frankfurt. We also have our AI mentors. Our experts will provide mentoring to Alldus members. And don't forget our AI in Action podcast. Each week we have guests from all over the world talking us through their education, career, and more. Become an Alldus member and get the Alldus advantage. For more information and to sign up for our newsletter, log on to www.alldus.com. That's www.alldus.com. Alldus International, empowering through AI.